game. And I think we stay tuned to this program for the next couple of weeks, and I'm sure a lot of benefit will be getting from the participants and those who register to MPP this time. Dan tokoh pendidik kita pada kali ini adalah Prof. Nur Azlina Muhammad daripada Jabatan Pharmacology dan juga penolong dekan kualiti dan strategi, akan memberikan topik yang telah dikatakan oleh saudara Bukhari tadi. Dan without further ado, I would like to invite Prof. Nur Azlina mentor, which is none other than Prof. Dr. Ima Nirvana Sulaiman, to give an introduction about our tokoh penyelidik this time, which is Professor Nur Azlina Muhammad, and the title of presentation, semoga ianya menjadi inspirasi kepada semua penyelidik di luar sana untuk berusaha, and one day you or whoever that will be on the stage as a tokoh penyelidik in the future. Sekian, semoga kita semua akan menikmati dan enjoy the fruitful discussion and program of the Minggu Pendidikan Perubatan Sains Kesihatan for the next couple of weeks or so. Dengan itu, sekian. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera and have a nice day. Thank you. Terima kasih, Encik Bukhari.
Thank you very much, Yang Mulia Profesor Dr. Raja Effendi Raja Ali. Assalamualaikum and selamat sejahtera semua. Professor Dr. Nur Azlina Muhammad is a professor of pharmacology from the Department of Pharmacology, Faculty of Medicine, University Kebangsaan Malaysia. She graduated with a Bachelor of Biomedical Science with honours from University Kebangsaan Malaysia in 1996 and PhD in Pharmacology also from University Kebangsaan Malaysia in 2001. Professor Nur Azlina started her research on bone metabolism and osteoporosis when she became a research assistant in 1996. My research assistant actually. She registered as master student soon after that and upgraded to PhD after a year. Her PhD thesis won the Hadiah Khalid Qadir in 2001. She was offered a post as tutor in the Department of Pharmacology in 2000 and became a lecturer in 2001. Since then, she has published 128 articles in peer-reviewed journals. She has an H index of 25 and cumulative citation of 1,753. Very impressive, Prof. Nur Azlina. She has won several research and innovation awards, either as principal investigator or co-investigator in local and international exhibitions, such as the International Exhibition of Inventions, New Techniques and Products, Geneva, International Invention, Innovation and Technology Exhibition, ITEX, and Malaysia Technology Expo. She has been the principal investigator for internal and external funds, such as the IRPA grant, FRGS grant, and NRGS grant. She has been one of the evaluators for research proposals submitted to the Ministry of Education. She has been appointed as internal examiner for several postgraduate students in the Faculty of Medicine and external examiner in several local universities such as UM, UITM, and UXI. She is one of the section editors for Medicine and Health Journal and one of the associate editors for BMC Complementary and Alternative Medicine Journal. She has supervised numerous students at postgraduate and undergraduate levels. She was also awarded the PPUKM Researcher of the Year Award in 2011. Prof. Nur Azlina is currently the Assistant Dean for Quality and Strategy, Faculty of Medicine, UKM. She was the head Department of Pharmacology from 2011 to 2016 and also the head Bone Metabolism Research Group, UKM, from 2012 to 2019. On a more personal note, Nur Azlina, or Lika as she is fondly known to her friends, was the first PhD student that I supervised. Lika, my dear, I am very proud of you. So it gives me great pleasure to call upon Professor Dr. Nur Azlina Muhammad to deliver her syarahan tokoh penyelidik. Dipersilakan.
Okay, thank you Prof. Ima for the lovely introduction. Assalamualaikum and a very good morning to Dean, Professor Dr. Raja Effendi Raja Ali, Dr. Haziri, the chairperson of Minggu Penyelidikan for this year, and everyone present online. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to the faculty for naming me as this year's Tokoh Penyelidik. It's an honor indeed. And it's also an honor to be the first Tokoh Penyelidik to deliver a talk via this online platform. Okay, now let me share my screen. Okay, so I'm going to talk about some parts of my research work. So as the title goes, Natural Products and Bone Health, a Tale of Rat Race. So why rat race? Well, the research work has been done on rats mainly, and there were some racing involved during completing this project. I'm going to share with all of you later. So as a researcher, we are bound to experience this racing game, grant application deadlines, ethics submission. As you know, that ethics meeting is not every day or even every week. So we need to meet the ethics deadline to get approval for our research project. We need to chase our milestone. We need to race to complete our milestones. Progress and final report deadlines. Progress report for some grants, if we did not submit our progress report, we may not get the next cycle of the grant money. And publication submission and also corrections. For some journal, they give a time frame for us to submit the corrections. So all this is the part and parcel of being a researcher. And also not to mention the cat and mouse game between supervisor and student. I remember during my postgraduate days, I tend to avoid bumping into Prof. Ima in the corridor because for sure she will ask me about the progress of the project, thesis write-up, and also article submission. Nothing against you, Prof. Ima, but I think this is a normal scenario between supervisor and student. So now that I have become a supervisor, I'm sure that my students also feel the same way. Okay, so this is the first chapter of my story, the race against the traffic. So this was the research project that I did during my master's and PhD actually. So during this time, Department of Pharmacology was still in Jalan Raja Muda Abdul Aziz campus, and I need to measure the bone density of my rats. And the machine, the DEXA machine, the X-ray machine to scan the bones was in HUKM. So I need to carry my rats. I need to bring my rats from Chowkit to Cheras in my car. I was driving a Kantir at that time. So and also I need to cover the rat cages very well because the rats are alive. And so we did not want the patients to see the rats going into the examination room because the same DEXA machine was being used for the patients. So I need to really be discreet about getting the rats into the examination room. And too bad the social media was not the in thing at that time, so or else I will have pictures of my rats in my Facebook page. Okay, so this part of my project is the effects of vitamin E on bone in ornithomized rats. So as we know, bone structure is maintained by the, and usually imbalance between these two processes will cause osteoporosis. And in ornithomized rats, usually because of the lack of estrogen, there will be oxidative stress, and oxidative stress has been implicated as trigger for postmenopausal osteoporosis. So in experimental animal, ornithomized rats has been shown to have similar bone changes to postmenopausal women. So that's why we use this rat model to study our as early as 1980s. And there are two types of vitamin E, tocopherol and tocotrienol. And tocotrienol is abundant in our palm oil. And it has been shown that vitamin E has antioxidant properties. So we came up with this research question: can E prevent bone loss in erectomized rats? So this was the study design. So we have the female Sprague-Dawley rats. We divided them into the intact rats and the orectomy rats. So the orectomy, we did some surgical procedure to the rats, remove both ovaries from the rats to make them menopause, so that they don't have any ovaries, they don't have any estrogen hormone. So these intact rats and orectomized rats were further divided into 4 groups: rat chow, palm vitamin E 30 milligram per kilogram, palm vitamin E 60 milligram per kilogram, and alpha tocopherol 30 milligram per kilogram. So we treat these rats for 10 months. And after 10 months, we measured the bone mineral density, especially at the 3rd to 5th lumbar bones and also on the femur. We also extracted the 5th lumbar bones and the femur bones to measure bone calcium content. And we also measure serum bone biomarkers, which is the alkaline phosphatase and tartrate resistant acid phosphatase. So why did we choose lumbar bones and femur bones? Because of the different types of bone that exist in these bones. For example, the lumbar bone mainly make up by trabecular bone, whereas the femur bone are mainly composed of cortical bone. So there are 2 types of bone. And for alkaline phosphatase is actually the bone formation marker, whereas tartrate resistant acid phosphatase was the bone resorption marker. So we found out that orectomized cause a reduction in bone mineral density of the 3rd lumbar and the 5th lumbar bones. It also reduced the bone mineral density of the femur bones. But as you can see, when we supplemented the rats with palm vitamin E30 and palm vitamin E60 and also alpha tocopherol, we did not see that reduction, meaning that the supplementation was able to prevent the reduction of bone mineral density in these orectomized rats. And for the bone calcium content, we did not see any changes in the orectomized rats. So we did not see any reduction in the bone calcium content. And interestingly, we saw that palm vitamin E 30 milligram per kilogram showed a lower bone calcium content compared to normal rat chow group, and also compared to the orectomized group, and also compared to alpha tocopherol 30 milligram per kilogram. So this is quite a surprising finding to us, because while this palm vitamin E 30 milligram per kilogram reduced bone calcium content both in 5th lumbar bones and also in the femur bones. And palm vitamin E actually is a mixture between tocopherol and tocotrienol. That is about 20% of alpha tocopherol and 60% tocotrienol. Tocotrienol, which composed of alpha, gamma, and delta isomers. But interestingly also, when we increase the dose to palm vitamin E 60 milligram per kilogram, the reduction that we saw in palm PVE 30 was not there anymore. So meaning that when we increase the dose to 60, the bone calcium content normalized. So we thought that maybe there is some interaction between tocopherol and tocotrienol at 30 milligram per kilogram, but as you increase the dose to 60, the interaction was overcame by the higher tocotrienol content. So as we increase the dose to 60, then the tocotrienol content also will be increased, and it will also override the interaction between tocopherol and tocotrienol. Okay. So as for the bone biomarkers, so we can see that palm vitamin E30 and alpha tocopherol 30 increase alkaline phosphatase, which is indicative of bone formation. whereas alpha tocopherol 30 reduced tartrate resistant acid phosphatase, as we can see in this chart. Okay, so tartrate resistant acid phosphatase was reduced, which is indicative of reduce in bone resorption. So how important is vitamin E for bone health? So based on those findings, we saw that palm vitamin E and alpha tocopherol both had some positive effects on bone, but how important is vitamin E? So we proceed with effects of vitamin E deficiency on bone in female rats. So we fed our female rats with vitamin E deficient diet. So this is further divided into 6 groups: the vitamin E deficient diet control group, the palm vitamin E60. So we chose palm vitamin E60 because of the previous study. We saw that palm vitamin E60 was the best dose. The calcium group, the vitamin D group, the combination palm vitamin E60 and calcium group, and also the combination between PVE60 and vitamin D. So we treat these rats for 7 months. And again, we measured the bone mineral density, the bone calcium content, and the serum bone biomarkers. So at the end of that 7 months, we saw that the vitamin E deficient group had a lower bone mineral density compared to the calcium group, and also compared to the combination of palm vitamin E and calcium group. So we saw that vitamin E deficient affect the bone density. Same with the both lumbar and also the femur regions. Okay, and we saw that calcium increased the bone mineral density. Okay, vitamin E and vitamin D was not able to increase bone mineral density in vitamin E deficient rats. As we can see here, vitamin D and vitamin E alone does not affect the bone mineral density, does not increase the bone mineral density. But the combination with calcium increased the BMD. Whereas for bone calcium content, we saw that palm vitamin E was able to increase the bone calcium content for both fifth lumbar and the palm and femur bones. And the increment of the bone calcium content in by vitamin E60 was even superior to calcium. As we can see here, palm vitamin E60 was significantly higher compared to calcium in terms of bone calcium content. And again, we did not see any change with vitamin D. Vitamin D was not able to increase calcium content in vitamin E deficient rats. So we actually can see that vitamin D does not work if vitamin E is not there. Bearing in mind that these rats are vitamin E deficient, they don't have any vitamin E, and then we saw that vitamin D doesn't work in increasing bone calcium content and also bone mineral density. As you know that vitamin D is important for bone, but if we don't have any vitamin E, the vitamin D does not work. Okay. So for the bone biomarkers, we did not see any changes in the alkaline phosphatase. But for the tartrate resistant acid phosphatase, we saw that calcium reduced the level, which is indicative of reduce in bone resorption. Okay, so only calcium reduced the bone, the tartrate resistant acid phosphatase. So as a conclusion from this part of the study, vitamin E is crucial for bone health, as evidenced by impairment of bone in vitamin E deficient condition. Both tocopherol and tocotrienol preserve bone mineral density and bone calcium content in obractomyces rats. And this may be due to the antioxidant property by the vitamin E, as shown by this study. Tocotrienol reduces oxidative stress and reduces bone resorption. And also, it has been shown that alpha tocopherol suppresses osteoclastogenesis. So this may be the mechanism how vitamin E protect the bone. And we also noted that palm vitamin E at the dose of 60 milligram per kilogram was more effective than 30 milligram per kilogram. And as I've mentioned earlier, palm vitamin E is a mixture between tocopherol and tocotrienol. And it has been shown that alpha-tocopherol, which has the highest affinity for alpha-tocopherol transfer protein, may inhibit the uptake of gamma-tocotrienol into the tissues. So this may be why when we give 30 milligram per kilogram of palm vitamin E, there was some interaction between the tocopherol and tocotrienol, causing the mixture don't work in our experimental rat. But when we increase the dose to 60 milligram per kilogram, we can see that it's improved. The effects will improve. So maybe there was some interaction or some competition for the transfer protein that happens. Okay. So these are some papers that were published based on those studies. Okay, next is the race against students' turnover. So actually, I received a grant, the FRGS grant, to do a project, but and I already allocated a PhD student to do this project. However, the student was not able to commit, and I need to find another student to do the project. So the project has been delayed for quite a while. So students turnover is also a problem for us researcher. So this part of study is actually a continuation of the previous one. So we would like to see the mechanism of at the molecular level, how vitamin E protect bone in overoptimized rats. So we do some proteomic studies, and previous studies have shown that there are proteins which are differentially expressed in estrogen deficient state. And these proteins that were identified were related to bone metabolism, cytoskeleton components, and energy metabolic pathways. It is also reported that the change protein is estrogen related. And another study also showed that traditional Chinese herbal formula can regulate the protein expression in overoptimized animals and improve bone mineral density. So we came up with this research question: does vitamin E prevent bone loss in overoptimized rats by regulating the protein expression? So this was the study design. So female spike dowry rats divided into sham operated, ovrectomy plus palm vitamin E, ovrectomy plus alpha tocopherol. And the treatment period was 2 months. So after 2 months, we extracted the bone, the femur and the humerus bones, and we extracted the protein from these bones and analyzed them via 2D gel electrophoresis and proceed with PD-Quest analysis, and then finally protein identification by Multitoph mass spectrometry. So these are the 2D electrophoresis gel map at 50% intensity for all the 4 groups: sham operated, overoptimized plus palm vitamin E, and overoptimized plus alpha tocopherol. And based on this, we identified a few protein spots which are highly downregulated or highly upregulated. Okay, and we proceed with protein identification by Multitoph. So these are the images from Multitoph analysis. And we summarize the findings into this table. So these are the proteins that have been identified, which have some changes in our experimental rats. So we have glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate dehydrogenase. We found that this protein was down-regulated in overoptimized rats, but up-regulated in palm vitamin E. And it has been shown that this protein can be changed when there are bone changes. So overectomy may cause some reduction in this protein, but palm vitamin E increase it back. However, alpha tocopherol doesn't affect this protein. Next protein is beta-enolase. Beta-enolase has been shown to regulate differentiation and function of bone marrow mast cells. So it has some function on the bone. And again, we saw that this protein was down-regulated in overoptimized group, but upregulated by supplementation of palm vitamin E and alpha tocopherol. Another protein is vimentin. Vimentin is actually increased during osteoclast differentiation. Osteoclast is the bone resorption cell, meaning that if this is increased, it's not good for the bone. The bone will, there will be bone loss. And vimentin also was upregulated in organoid mice found by one study. So we concur with that study and we saw that vimentin was increased in organoid rats. And palm vitamin E and alpha tocopherol was able to reduce this vimentin protein. Another protein, tropomyosin. Tropomyosin was increased in organoid group, but reduced in both palm vitamin E and alpha tocopherol. And it has been shown that tropomyosin regulates the function of osteoclast. Again, osteoclast is the bone resorption cell. Another protein is annexin A1, reduced in organoid group, but increased in the supplemented groups. And this protein is actually a calcium binding protein and was found to be reduced in osteoporotic patients. So the supplementation helps protect the bone by increasing this protein. And we also identify hemoglobin subunit alpha and hemoglobin subunit beta. We saw that subunit alpha was reduced in organoid group, but increased in both palm vitamin E and alpha tocopherol groups. And for hemoglobin subunit beta, only palm vitamin E can increase the protein, was shown to increase the protein. And this hemoglobin was has protective role against oxidative stress induced DNA damage. Okay, next is semaphorin. It was reduced in organoid group, but increased in palm vitamin E, but no change in the alpha tocopherol group. Semaphorin is also a protein that has osteoprotective effects, okay, as shown by this study. And lastly, the protein that we saw, that we observed was ubiquitin ligase E3, which was increased in organoid group, but reduced by alpha tocopherol. And this protein actually negatively regulates osteoblast differentiation. So meaning that high of this protein was not good. That's why in organoid group, we saw that this protein was high. So we can actually note that there are few differences between the palm vitamin E and alpha tocopherol. One is a glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate dehydrogenase, hemoglobin subunit beta, and also semaphorin, which were increased in palm vitamin E group, but not observed in alpha tocopherol group. So these changes might actually contribute to the differences in the mechanism between palm vitamin E and alpha tocopherol, and also contribute to the superiority of palm vitamin E over alpha tocopherol. Okay. So this is a paper that was published based on that project. Okay, next chapter is the race against submission deadline. I was just appointed as a lecturer, and after my PhD, so I applied for the IPA grant, and it was quite a struggle for me to complete the proposal and to submit this proposal. So IPA grant is actually under the MOSTI. Now it is being called Science Fund, I think. So this project was still focusing on vitamin E, but using a different animal model. So we use nicotine-induced rat model. So in experimental animals, nicotine can cause changes in bone structure and impair mechanical properties. Studies have also shown that smokers have elevated bone resorption marker and reduced bone mineral density. And it has been shown that impaired osteogenesis induced by nicotine is attributed to increase in oxidative stress. So we ask ourselves whether vitamin E can prevent the adverse effects of nicotine on bone. So we came up with this study design. So we used male Sprague-Dawley rats. So we have the control, the nicotine group, nicotine plus alpha tocopherol, nicotine plus tocotrienol enriched fraction, nicotine plus gamma tocotrienol. So the treatment periods was done in 2 phases. So for the first phase, for the first 2 months, all rats except for the control received nicotine at 7 milligram per kilogram. After 2 months, the nicotine was stopped, and then the nicotine control group was given olive oil for another 2 months. The ATF group, they were given alpha tocopherol 60 milligram per kilogram for 2 months, and tocotrienol enhanced fraction was given for the second phase for another 2 months, and same with the GTT group. They received gamma tocotrienol at 60 milligram per kilogram for another 2 months. So after completion of this study period, we measured the bone histomorphometry and serum bone biomarkers. So these are the images of the bone histomorphometry. So we use von Cosa stain, and this stain colored the trabecular bone black. So this black part is actually the bone, the trabecular bone. So visually we can see that the nicotine group has less trabecular bone, and the bone is actually not close to each other. They were separated, meaning that they are like a porous condition, as opposed to groups that received alpha tocopherol and tocotrienol enhanced fraction and also gamma tocotrienol. The trabecular looks thicker, and they are close to each other. They are more compact. And quantitatively, we also we saw that the nicotine group has a reduction in trabecular bone volume, reduction in trabecular thickness, reduction in trabecular number, and also increase in trabecular separation. Okay, and all the vitamin E groups actually reverse the effects. So all the vitamin E groups increase the trabecular bone volume, trabecular thickness, increase the trabecular number. Only alpha tocopherol and GTT showed the significant changes, and reduce the trabecular separation. Okay. For the bone biomarkers, we measured osteocalcin, which is the bone formation marker, and we measured serum pyridinoline, which is the bone resorption marker. Okay, so based on these charts, we can see that the nicotine reduced osteocalcin and increased pyridinoline. So reduce in bone formation and increase in bone resorption. And even though at the second phase of the study, we stopped the nicotine, we can see that the changes are still not reversed. So meaning that the serum osteocalcin was still low, and the pyridinoline level was still high. So meaning that even when we stopped the nicotine, the effects on the serum biomarkers was not reversed. Okay, but when we supplement the animals with the vitamin E, the effects were reversed, especially gamma tocotrienol and tocotrienol and enhanced fraction. Alpha tocopherol was able to increase osteocalcin level, but not able to reduce pyridinoline level significantly. It reduced, but it is not significant compared to the nicotine control. Okay. So what is gamma tocotrienol? Gamma tocotrienol is composed of 90% pure gamma tocotrienol, while tocotrienol enhanced fraction is a mixture of 43% alpha tocotrienol, 31% gamma tocotrienol, and 14% delta tocotrienol. And vitamin E In the study, we saw that vitamin E improved bone impairment caused by nicotine, and both gamma tocotrienol and tocotrienol enhanced fraction were superior to alpha-tocopherol in reversing the effects on bone biomarkers. So in terms of mechanisms, studies have shown that nicotine downregulated expression of osteogenic genes, which was reversed by vitamin E. So maybe in our study, vitamin E also affects the osteogenic genes. That's why we saw some improvement in the bone structure. And it was also shown that vitamin E was able to provide protection against nicotine-induced oxidative stress. So these are in terms of the mechanisms. Okay, so these are some of the papers that were published based on that study. Okay. So next is race against progress report. So in this part, we actually received a grant from Ministry of Agriculture for doing a project on Kacik Fatimah. But however, we don't have any student at that point of time. And when I had to present my first progress report to the ministry, I don't have anything to report. So imagine my stress level at that time. But Alhamdulillah, finally I got a student, a PhD student who was very good, a very fast learner and a very fast worker. So we actually completed this study. So this part of study is actually to determine the effects of Marathodes pumilum or Kacik Fatimah on bone in ovrectomized rats. Another name for Marathodes pumilum is Labicia pumila. So in estrogen deficiency, it has been shown there is increase in cortical bone porosity. So this plant, Marathodes pumilum or Labicia pumila, possesses compounds with estrogenic activities with selectivity towards estrogen receptor alpha and estrogen receptor beta. And it has been shown that Labicia pumila has exert positive effects on bone in ovrectomized rats. So we came up with this question: is there a difference in effect between leaf and root extract of Marathodes pumilum on bone in ovrectomized rats? Because previously, these studies by FND et al., Fatila et al., they all did on the whole plant extract. They did not differentiate between the leaf and the root of the plant. So we proceed with differentiating between the leaf and the root to see whether there's any difference in the effects on bone. So this was the study design. We have the Spratt dolly rats again, sham operated, ovrectomized control, ovrectomized plus estrogen replacement therapy, ovrectomized plus Marathodes pumilum leaf 20 mg per kilogram, and ovrectomized plus Marathodes pumilum root 20 mg per kilogram. The dosage of 20 mg per kilogram was obtained based on our pilot study that was done previously. So we saw that this dose 20 mg per kilogram was the optimum dose to give the effects on bone. So after 2 months, we measured the bone morphometry and bone densitometry. So these are the micro-CT images of trabecular bone. So this is the sham operated group, the ovrectomized control, supplemented with estrogen replacement therapy, supplemented with leaf 20 mg per kilogram and root 20 mg per kilogram. Okay, so visually we can see that in terms of the density of the bone for ovrectomized group, it showed less density as opposed to the other groups. Okay. So quantitatively, we noted that ovrectomized group had a reduction in bone mineral density and also in tissue mineral density. Estrogen replacement therapy and the leaf extract 20 mg per kilogram were able to reverse the effects. However, the root extract was only able to increase tissue mineral density but not bone mineral density. So we can see the difference in the effects between the root extract and the leaf extract. We don't see any changes here. Only at the tissue mineral density we saw the changes by the root extract. These are the trabecular bone morphometric parameters. So we have the bone volume, trabecular thickness, trabecular number, trabecular separation, degree of anisotropy. Okay, so we saw that orectomy reduced bone volume compared to the sham, reduced trabecular number, and also reduced degree of anisotropy. So these are the significant changes that we saw. Okay, estrogen replacement therapy and the leaf extract 20 milligram per kilogram reverse all these effects. So the leaf extract increased back the bone volume, increased back the trabecular number, and increased the degree of anisotropy. However, the root extract only increased trabecular thickness, but not other parameters. So again, we saw some differences between the leaf extract and the root extract. We can see that the leaf extract has more positive effects compared to the root extract. So from this part of the study, we concluded that Maranthodes pumilum is able to protect against bone loss in orectomized rats. The leaf extract was found to be better than the root extract. And it has been shown that the leaves contain higher flavonoids, higher phenolic, and higher saponin content than the root. And in another study, the active compound from Maranthodes pumilum has been identified from the leaf extract, which is the dimethylbelamcandaquinone B or DMCQ-B. So this active compound possesses bone anabolic effects, which is at par with 17-beta estradiol or estrogen in promoting the proliferation, differentiation, and mineralization of osteoblast cells. So this might be the mechanism or the how actually Labicia pumila or Maranthodes pumilum protect the bone in orectomized rats. So these are some of the papers that were published based on this study. Okay, so as a summary or as a conclusion remark, we can say that natural products such as vitamin E, specifically tocotrienol and kacip Fatimah, exert positive effects on bone health in experimental animals. Further clinical studies are still needed to confirm its effects on human. So the race is still going on. Okay. A rat race by definition is an endless, self-defeating or pointless pursuit. But is it pointless? I don't mind the rat race, but I could do with a little more cheese. But honestly speaking, I had a mouthful of cheese throughout my journey as a researcher. The cheese came in the form of publications, also students graduated. So those are the cheese that actually made my day, not the monetary reward. Okay. But is doing research really a race? It is a race, but it is a relay race. And I have a lot of people that I am thankful for and grateful for joining me in this relay race. First of all, of course, Professor Dr. Imaniwana Sulaiman as my mentor from my student days until now. Thank you so much for the guidance and the advice. And my students, of course, first we have Associate Professor Dr. Patrick, who did the proteomic studies. And he is now at UCSI, lecturing at UCSI. Associate Professor Dr. Hermizi, who did the nicotine work. She now is the lecturer in USM. And finally, Dr. Tijani, who did the Kacip Fatimah work. He is now a lecturer back in his country in Nigeria. So I'm really thankful for these awesome students, awesome people to help me with my work. And of course, the Bone Metabolism Research Group, Faculty of Medicine UKM. We have members from various departments, pharmacology, anatomy, pathology, orthopedic, and also medicine. So thank you for your support and also valuable input. And staff and postgraduate students from Department of Pharmacology, thank you so much for the support and the technical assistance. And of course, the management team, Faculty of Medicine, UKM, thank you for the support and also the recognition. And oh yeah, by the way, Prof. Sharifah Izzat is missing in this picture. And this is the only picture taken during the COVID. That's why we distanced ourselves. The other pictures were taken before COVID, long before COVID. And of course, my circle of friends, even though they may not contribute to the research component, but they cheer me on and also provide the avenue when I want to vent some steam. Okay. And of course, my big family, I'm from Raut Pahang, a small kampung called Kampung Gali Tengah, and this is the Gali Tengah clan. So thank you for being there. And of course, most importantly, my pillar of strength and also my backbone, my husband Sharifuddin Sulaiman and my 5 girls. So with that, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Nur Azlina. That was really a remarkable journey. I noticed several people who raised their hands during the talk. May I suggest you write your questions or comments on the chat, on the Q&A section, yeah? And I will read out the questions or the comments accordingly, and hopefully Nur Azlina can respond. Okay, so we have a couple of questions from Professor Gabriel Froming. Okay, the first one was, why was nicotine used? Is there any evidence that smoking induces osteoporosis? And how to avoid the toxicity of nicotine? Are there any cell culture experiments with nicotine?
Okay, thank you, Prof. Gabriel. We use nicotine because there are studies that showed nicotine affect the bone because of the oxidative stress induced by nicotine. And there are several studies in human subjects actually. Those who are smoking, they showed reduce in bone mineral density. So that's why we chose nicotine. And how to avoid the toxicity of nicotine, I suppose, based on our study, vitamin E, of course, and also to stop smoking. In terms of cell culture experiment with nicotine, I'm sure there are other researchers who did this, but unfortunately, we did not do that in our setting.
Okay, thank you, Nur Azlina. So another question from Prof. Gabriel. Have you looked into the carboxylation status of osteocalcin? Decarboxylated osteocalcin is a hormone now which gives feedback to the pancreas.
Okay, thank you for the question. Unfortunately, we did not do that. We did not look into that carboxylation status of osteocalcin. We take note of your question and take note of your suggestion. Thank you.
Okay, are there any more questions from the attendees? Actually, I have one, I won't call it a question because we actually did the research together, but I just want to highlight, yeah, Nur Azlina, Olika, that we actually made sure that the rats, we stopped the nicotine in the animals for 2 months before we started the treatment, yeah? Can you explain why?
Again, Prima, we stopped the nicotine?
Yeah, we stopped the nicotine cessation group. We actually stopped giving nicotine for 2 months, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And then only we started treatment with vitamin E. Can you explain why? Yeah.
Actually, we didn't. We stopped the nicotine after 2 months, but immediately we start the treatment. Not after 2 months, then only. So we actually give nicotine for 2 months and then we stop the nicotine, then only we treat, because we don't want to give the impression you can continue taking nicotine or continue smoking, but at the same time you can take vitamin E to prevent the effects of nicotine. We don't want to give that impression. So that's why we stop the nicotine and then treat the animals with vitamin E.
Yeah, okay, that was a very important point that we wanted to highlight, that we actually did not want to give the impression that nicotine and smoking is okay. Smoking is never okay. Okay, do we have any other questions or responses from the attendees? Okay, I noticed that there were a few people who raised their hands just now. Please type in your question at the Q&A column. Okay, if there is nothing more, then I would like to congratulate Prof. Nur Azlina Muhammad again, and all the best. I'm sure you have a brilliant future career. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Lima.
Terima kasih Profesor Dr. Nur Azlina Muhammad dan Profesor Dr. Iman Nirwana Sulaiman. Jadi dengan ini telah berakhir, telah tamat webinar Tokoh Penyelidik sempena Minggu Penyelidikan Perubatan 2020. Sekian, wabillahi taufiq wa hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.